Why do so many people feel like the world in 2025 has become too chaotic to handle? Why, with all the technology, wealth, and resources humanity has built, do we still find ourselves anxious, restless, and uncertain about the future? And why does it seem that the harder we chase stability and comfort, the further away peace seems to slip from our grasp? These questions sit at the heart of the modern human struggle. In a year defined by digital overload, political tension, economic uncertainty, and constant comparison, Americans in particular are searching for something that feels solid, something that can anchor them against the storms of daily life. And in that search, many are discovering what a group of ancient philosophers knew nearly 2,000 years ago, that thriving in chaos requires not control of the world, but control of the self. This is the essence of Stoicism, and its principles are more relevant in 2025 than ever before. Stoicism was born in a world just as unstable as ours. The ancient Stoics lived through plagues, wars, political upheaval, and personal loss. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled Rome, endured invasions and betrayals. Seneca, one of the empire's wealthiest men, lived under constant threat of execution. Epictetus, once a slave, suffered physical pain throughout his life. Yet in the face of these challenges, they developed a philosophy not of despair, but of resilience. They taught that humans cannot control fortune, but they can control judgment. They cannot dictate what happens, but they can dictate how they respond. This shift of focus from the external world to the internal mind is the key to thriving not just in ancient Rome, but in modern America. In 2025, people face storms of a different kind. The storm of information, overwhelming and often contradictory. The storm of politics, divisive and emotionally exhausting. The storm of economics, with inflation, debt, and uncertainty about jobs and housing. The storm of technology, where artificial intelligence transforms daily life faster than people can adapt. And the storm of personal comparison, fueled by social media that highlights everyone else's best moments while magnifying our own worst doubts. These storms create constant stress, burnout, and anxiety. Many feel powerless. But the Stoics would remind us, power is never lost, only misplaced. We cannot command the storms, but we can command the ship of our mind. The first Stoic principle that thrives in 2025 is the distinction between what is in our control and what is not. Epictetus made this the foundation of his teaching. Some things, our opinions, choices, desires, and actions, are ours to govern. Other things, politics, weather, economy, and other people's opinions, are not. Anxiety grows when we confuse the two, when we spend energy raging against what cannot be changed. In a noisy digital culture, this principle is liberating. You cannot control headlines or algorithms, but you can control how often you consume them. You cannot control what a colleague posts online, but you can control your response. This principle, applied daily, reduces anxiety and builds resilience. The second principle is practicing presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about the importance of confining attention to the present moment. Do not let the future disturb you, he reminded himself. Yet in 2025, many Americans live in the future, worrying about the next crisis, the next bill, the next trend. Others live in the past, replaying mistakes and regrets. The result is exhaustion. Stoic presence means grounding in the now. It means noticing the breath, focusing on the task at hand, and refusing to let imagination steal today. Modern mindfulness overlaps here, but Stoicism adds depth. It reminds us that presence is not just calm, but strength. Each day offers enough challenges. Meeting them one by one creates clarity in chaos. A third principle is voluntary simplicity. Seneca praised the practice of occasionally living with less, plain food, simple clothing, fewer comforts, not to punish but to prepare. In 2025, where consumerism dominates and ads bombard every moment, this principle is radical. Americans are taught that happiness requires more gadgets, more upgrades, more subscriptions. Yet often, the more we consume, the less satisfied we feel. Voluntary simplicity trains the mind to need less, to detach from possessions, to discover that peace lies not in excess, but in enough. Practicing this today could mean taking breaks from online shopping, cooking simple meals, or stepping away from the endless chase of trends. Each act shrinks anxiety, proving that well-being is not purchased but practiced. Another principle is preparing for adversity. The Stoics taught premeditation malorum, the premeditation of evils. They visualized challenges before they arrived, so they would not be shocked when misfortune came. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily of sickness, betrayal, and loss, not to live in fear, but to live in readiness. In 2025, adversity is certain. Jobs may shift, relationships may strain, technology may disrupt. Instead of being blindsided, the Stoic prepares mentally. Yes, challenges will come. Yes, life will hurt, but I will endure. This practice turns fear into courage. It reframes stress as training. For Americans anxious about an uncertain future, this principle brings strength. The fifth principle is emotional discipline. Stoicism is not about suppressing feelings, but guiding them. Anger, envy, fear all arise naturally, but the Stoics warned against letting them rule the soul. Epictetus compared emotions to wild horses, strong but dangerous if untrained. In 2025, emotions are constantly manipulated by news, by marketing, by online conflict. Outrage is profitable, envy drives sales. Stoic discipline means pausing before reacting, asking, is this in my control? Is this worth my energy? Does this align with virtue? This practice transforms emotional reactivity into equanimity. It allows Americans to navigate debates, disagreements, and disappointments without being consumed. A sixth principle is aligning with virtue rather than fortune. The Stoics defined virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, as the only true good. External fortune, whether wealth or fame, was secondary and unstable. In modern America, where success is measured by income, followers, and status, this principle is revolutionary. Thriving in 2025 means shifting measurement from what you own to who you are. Did you act with honesty today? Did you show courage in difficulty? Did you practice justice toward others? These are measures of true wealth. Fortune may rise and fall, but virtue remains within your control. This shift reduces stress by grounding worth in what cannot be taken. The final principle is remembering mortality. Memento mori, remember you will die, was a core Stoic practice. This was not morbid, but liberating. By reflecting on death, the Stoics reminded themselves to live fully, to waste no time on trivialities, to focus on what matters. In 2025, Americans often live as if life is endless, postponing joy, deferring presents, drowning in distractions. Remembering mortality cuts through this illusion. It reminds us that time is precious, that scrolling endlessly is not living, that each day deserves attention. By facing death, we learn to live. By remembering limits, we find freedom. Applied together, these principles form a shield against the chaos of modern life. Control what is yours. Live in the present. Practice simplicity. Prepare for adversity. Guide your emotions. Anchor in virtue. Remember mortality. These are not abstract ideas, but daily practices. They can be written each morning, reflected on each evening, and lived in every decision. For Americans overwhelmed by the noise of 2025, they offer clarity, steadiness, and calm. Stoicism does not promise that the world will calm down. The storms will continue, political debates, economic shifts, technological disruption. But it promises that you can remain steady in the storm. That thriving is not about waiting for peace outside, but building peace inside. That resilience is not about controlling the future, but mastering the present. In a world where everything feels fragile, Stoicism offers something solid: the discipline of the mind, the courage of the heart, and the strength of the soul. Thriving in 2025 requires more than knowing principles, it requires living them. The Stoics emphasized practice over theory. Epictetus warned his students not to talk endlessly about philosophy, but to embody it. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily not to impress others, but to remind himself to act. Seneca urged reflection not as an intellectual exercise, but as preparation for life. For Americans in 2025, this distinction is vital. Reading about Stoicism will not calm social media anxiety, reduce burnout, or end comparison. Living Stoicism, applying its principles daily, will. Each principle becomes powerful when woven into ordinary routines. Take the first principle: control what you can, release what you cannot. In daily life, this means shifting focus from headlines to habits. Instead of waking up and scrolling through anxious news, start the day by choosing a single intention you can control: gratitude, effort, kindness. At work, when overwhelmed by corporate changes or political decisions, pause and ask, what part of this is mine to govern? Perhaps only your effort, not the outcome. At home, when relationships bring stress, remember, you cannot control another's mood, but you can control your patience. Each act of focusing inward shrinks the reach of anxiety. Over time, this practice rewires the mind to conserve energy for what matters. The second principle, presence, transforms chaos into clarity. In 2025, distractions are everywhere. Phones buzzing, ads flashing, algorithms pulling attention. Presence is rebellion. It means sitting fully in a meal, tasting each bite without checking the feed. It means working on one task at a time, ignoring multitasking myths. It means listening fully to a friend, resisting the urge to plan your reply while they speak. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. Practicing this each day reduces stress because much of anxiety comes from elsewhere, the imagined future or the remembered past. Presence keeps life manageable. Voluntary simplicity, the third principle, becomes especially powerful in consumerist America. Advertisements constantly whisper that happiness requires the latest gadget, the newest subscription, the best lifestyle. Yet many Americans report feeling emptier despite having more. Practicing simplicity disrupts this cycle. It could mean dedicating one day a week to no spending, eating plain meals, or wearing simple clothes without worry for trends. Seneca encouraged his students to do this not as punishment but as freedom training, reminding themselves how little is truly necessary. In 2025, simplicity might also mean digital reduction, unsubscribing from endless emails, deleting unused apps, decluttering online spaces. Each choice lightens the mind. The fourth principle, preparing for adversity, is uncomfortable but essential. Americans often live in fear of disruption, job loss, health crises, political change. This fear grows stronger when we pretend life should be smooth. The Stoics did the opposite. They reminded themselves daily of difficulty, not to dwell, but to prepare. This practice could mean imagining a stressful meeting before it happens, preparing mentally for criticism. It could mean reflecting that money may be lost, friends may disappoint, health may falter, and yet you can endure. Modern psychologists recognize the value of this, calling it stress inoculation. By rehearsing adversity, we reduce shock. In 2025, when change feels constant, this practice builds resilience. Emotional discipline, the fifth principle, may be the hardest. Emotions today are weaponized by platforms and politics. Outrage trends, envy drives sales, fear wins attention. Americans are constantly provoked. Stoicism teaches that emotions are not enemies but signals. The key is to pause before reacting. Epictetus said, "When something happens, remember, it is not the thing itself but your judgment." This means when a social media post sparks envy, pause. Ask, what judgment am I making? That I am less than, that life is unfair? Is that true, or just my perception? This pause breaks the cycle. It transforms manipulation into mindfulness. Practicing this daily, pausing before replies, reflecting before reacting, builds equanimity. The sixth principle, aligning with virtue, provides a compass in a chaotic world. Success in 2025 is marketed as wealth, influence, or beauty. But these measures change constantly. The Stoics argued that only virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance remain stable. For Americans, this shift is profound. Instead of asking, did I earn enough today, we can ask, did I act with integrity today? Instead of worrying, do people approve of me, we can ask, was I honest, fair, and brave? Aligning with virtue reduces stress because it grounds identity in what cannot be taken away. Even if fortune collapses, virtue endures. Each day becomes meaningful, not through outcome, but through action. Remembering mortality, the seventh principle, shocks modern sensibilities but heals anxiety. Americans often avoid thinking about death, yet fear of death underlies much stress. The Stoics practiced memento mori, remembrance of mortality, not to darken life, but to brighten it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Applied today, this might mean cherishing family time instead of scrolling. It might mean pursuing meaningful work instead of endless busyness. It might mean forgiving instead of holding grudges. Mortality turns priorities clear. It reminds us that time is finite and precious. In 2025, when distractions consume hours unnoticed, memento mori brings urgency to live well. When combined, these principles create a daily practice. Imagine a routine. In the morning, reflect on control and mortality. During the day, practice presence and discipline. In the evening, review actions through the lens of virtue and simplicity. Over time, this rhythm reshapes the mind. Life's storms still rage, but inside, equanimity grows. The economy may shift, politics may fight, technology may disrupt, but you remain steady. This steadiness is not denial, but resilience. It is the difference between drowning in chaos and navigating through it. The cultural impact of these practices could be transformative if embraced widely. Imagine American workplaces where presence and virtue guide productivity instead of burnout. Imagine schools where children are taught not only facts, but resilience, how to distinguish control from chaos. Imagine families where simplicity is valued over consumerism, where silence is shared without devices, where mortality is remembered in gratitude rather than fear. Stoicism may be ancient, but its application could renew modern culture. Still, the path requires commitment. It is easy to nod at principles, harder to live them when stress strikes. But that is why the Stoics emphasize daily practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders not once but every day. Epictetus repeated teachings constantly to his students. Seneca returned to reflection nightly. In 2025, when distractions multiply, this repetition is more necessary than ever. Philosophy must not be a one-time inspiration, but a lifelong discipline. The paradox of Stoicism is that by focusing inward, it changes outward life. Americans who practice these principles will still face stress, but they will face it differently. They will still use technology, but without slavery to it. They will still experience loss, but with courage to endure. They will still engage with community, but with wisdom to contribute meaningfully. Thriving in 2025 does not mean escaping the world. It means standing firm within it. Stoicism gives the tools to do exactly that. The beauty of Stoicism is not in its complexity, but in its clarity. In a world where self-help books, apps, and wellness programs multiply endlessly, the Stoics return us to something simple. Focus on what you control. Live according to virtue. Prepare for adversity. Stay present. Discipline your emotions. Practice simplicity, and remember mortality. These 7 principles form a philosophy that anyone in any time can practice. In 2025, when Americans feel overwhelmed by noise, uncertainty, and digital comparison, simplicity itself is medicine. Stoicism does not add more to-do lists, it reduces them. It cuts through distraction, giving us a framework for peace. But to thrive with Stoicism requires more than admiration. It requires embodiment. Philosophy is useless if it remains in books or on screens. It must live in our choices. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations to publish. He wrote them to remind himself each morning to live wisely. Seneca's letters were not for display, but for guidance. Epictetus' lectures were not entertainment, but training. The Stoics knew that philosophy without action is empty. For Americans today, this means Stoicism must be woven into mornings, into commutes, into conversations, into work. It must be lived, not quoted. Living Stoicism in 2025 might look like this. Waking up and setting a Stoic intention instead of checking the phone. Asking, what is in my control today before heading into work? Meeting criticism with patience, remembering it is only opinion. Choosing presence at dinner instead of scrolling through news. Reflecting each evening not to condemn yourself, but to learn. Practicing gratitude for small things. A cup of coffee, a quiet moment, a breath of fresh air. Choosing simplicity in purchases, resisting consumerist pressure. Preparing mentally for life's uncertainty so when challenges come, they shock less. Remembering mortality so each day is valued and no time is wasted. These small practices, repeated daily, build a foundation of resilience. The reward of this discipline is equanimity. Equanimity is calm steadiness in the midst of chaos. It is the ability to scroll past outrage without anger, to see others' success without envy, to face uncertainty without despair. It does not mean indifference or apathy. It means strength. The strength to meet life as it is without breaking under its weight. In 2025, equanimity is revolutionary. It resists a culture designed to provoke constant reaction. It resists a system built on comparison. It resists fear-mongering headlines. Equanimity gives Americans back their freedom, the freedom to choose their response, to direct their attention, to live with integrity. Practicing Stoicism also restores meaning. Many Americans feel adrift, unsure of what matters in a noisy world. Stoicism answers, Virtue matters, integrity matters, justice matters, wisdom matters, courage matters. These are not shifting trends but permanent values. When we root our lives in them, life gains clarity. Success is no longer fragile, dependent on external approval. It is solid, built on character. This shift reduces anxiety because it stabilizes identity. No algorithm, no market, no critic can take away virtue. The cultural impact of adopting Stoicism could be immense. Imagine a society where leaders practiced equanimity instead of outrage, where citizens practiced patience instead of division, where communities valued simplicity over consumption. These shifts may sound idealistic, but they begin with individuals. When one person practices control, presence, and virtue, they influence those around them. Families, workplaces, and communities change slowly but surely. Stoicism does not promise utopia, but it promises resilience. And resilience may be exactly what America needs most in 2025. For those struggling right now, overwhelmed by news, drowning in comparison, restless in uncertainty, Stoicism offers immediate tools. Pause and breathe. Ask, is this in my control? If not, release it. If yes, act with virtue. This one shift can transform stress into calm. When emotions rise, remember they are signals, not masters. When envy appears, practice gratitude. When fear arrives, prepare mentally for difficulty. When life feels empty, remember mortality. Each principle is a tool, and each tool can be used today, right now, without waiting. Stoicism does not require years of study, it requires daily practice. And this is where we close, with an invitation. If you feel that 2025 has been overwhelming, if you are tired of chasing control, tired of comparison, tired of noise, then step onto the Stoic path. Practice these principles not as theory, but as action. Start small, live daily, repeat consistently. With time, you will find yourself steadier, calmer, freer. You will find yourself thriving, not because the world is less crazy, but because you are less shaken. If this message has spoken to you, then join us. Subscribe to Think Fresh Daily for more videos where ancient wisdom meets modern struggle. Like this video if it gave you clarity. Share it with someone who needs strength in 2025's chaos. Together we can build a community of resilience, a community of equanimity, a community grounded not in fleeting trends, but in timeless truths. The storms of the world will not stop, but with Stoicism you can stand firm. With discipline you can remain steady. With virtue you can thrive. And that choice always is within your control.